guys, it's Chef Jules. Thank you very much for joining me this week. So last week and the week before we were doing breakfast, which was team pancake or team waffle. I really hope you guys loved the recipes. I'm very excited to hear all of the results, and if you want, please post pictures in the comments because I'd love to see what you guys have done and some of the creations that you come up with, because that's one of the best things with cooking and baking is figuring out everything that you love. So please comment as many pictures as you would like or questions, and I'd love to be able to answer them for you. This week we are doing something a little bit different and also very exciting for a lot of people, which is dessert. At least it's very exciting for me. Anyway, I feel like dessert's probably one of the best parts of the meal. So anytime that you can get that first or with, I'm very excited. So I thought I'd start with something a little bit more basic, which is cookies. Because I feel like you have to have a great cookie recipe, no matter whether it's allergy-based, plant-based, everybody loves a great cookie. I personally love chocolate chip the most, which is why I picked this particular kind. However, I'm going to be doing a lot of different ones, so we will be talking about a lot of different flavors and different profiles that you can do. But I figured standard chocolate chip cookie recipe, who doesn't love that? But we made a few tweaks just to make it a little bit healthier, but also healthy and happy for the tummy. So instead of regular flour, I used almond flour. This I love with cookies in particular, just because it's really buttery and makes it really soft, which is great because you get that really nice mouthfeel with the chocolate, which is such an amazing flavor and taste in your mouth. However, you can also make it more crispy if you leave it in the oven a little bit longer, because the almonds kind of get that not burnt but caramelized flavor if you leave it in. So it's really, really nice. The only thing that I caution people is, like I mentioned last week, almond flour can burn really easily. So you just want to watch them in the oven, which is why I'm going to say for me, with our oven, I had to leave them in for half an hour for it to be fully baked. But some ovens work better or stronger than others. So I'm going to say that the standard time would be between 15 minutes to half an hour. 15 is the minimum, and then 30 would be the maximum. So once you get past that 15-minute mark, just keep checking them and just to see if the bottom's brown. And once that is, then you're good. Just to make sure that they're not getting too dark. And a lot of the time with cookies, people think that they're not done because they still feel a little bit soft, but they actually carry over cook when you take them out of the oven. So it's always better to leave a little bit of softness on the top, just so that way they don't end up too crispy. However, if you really like crispy cookies, then you can leave them in a little bit longer, and then you can get that really nice crunch. All preference and all what you would like. Both work really well. I prefer softer ones, so I tend to take them out a little bit sooner. The almond flour was one of the components. Now, this isn't something that you'd see as often, but I really like it. And because we're already doing almonds, I kind of feel like it worked well with the theme, and there's no sugar in it. So another great option to use if you're trying to do a little bit of a healthier version, or if sugar doesn't agree with you. It is actually pistachio milk. I got this at Farm Boy, which is not too expensive either. So it also is a really helpful option to be able to do low cost. It works really well with almonds because it has that buttery note. However, you can use whatever milk you want. You can use coconut, soy, oat, regular if you don't mind having the dairy. I just thought, why not give this a shot? So it's really, really good if you love pistachio like I do, and the flavor's amazing. I used dark chocolate chips. I prefer dark chocolate. If you wanted to use milk or white, feel free, because both work really well, or you could use a combination of both. I just really like dark chocolate. It's one of my favorites. And I like the kind of cocoa note that it gives with the almonds. So this particular one I use a lot. So it's really good. Also, the usuals, the vanilla extract, the baking powder, both of these you definitely need, especially when you're using an alternative flour, because you don't get as much rise as a regular one. So you want to have both of these on hand just to give it a little bit more of that rise. So definitely need both of these. Eggs. And then to give it another bit of a protein kick and crunch, which I really like in cookies sometimes. If you just prefer the chocolate and don't want any of that crunchy texture, then you can just stick with this and it'll taste great and work just as well. But if you want a little bit of extra crunch and more protein, which is huge for me, getting protein in the day, just because I find your gut cooperates better in the day if you have more protein, and it makes you feel really good. So I try to get in as much as I can. And hemp seeds are actually really good for you, and they give you that boost of protein. And so it makes it almost like a breakfast cookie in a way. So you can have it for dessert or you can have it for breakfast. And who doesn't want a cookie for breakfast? So you could definitely have these as an option. They're really great. They cook well. They give that little bit of texture and they taste really good because it gives a nutty note, which works really well with the almonds. So this is just another option if you wanted to throw another thing in. You could also do seeds if you wanted to, like pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, both work really well. And then you can do actual nuts in it too, almonds, cashews, pecans, whatever one you want, if you want just that little bit of extra texture. Or oats, you can even add oats to do chocolate oatmeal cookies. Both work really well, and I'm going to be doing different variations. So I'm going to show how I put these on the pan. The batter turned out really, really well. It looks pretty much like a standard chocolate chip cookie. I usually put my batters in the fridge for at least 10-15 minutes just so they don't spread out too much. If you want them done right away, then it still works just fine. Just sometimes they can spread a little thinner because the batter's warm. So if you're okay with that, then you can just put them right on the pan and in the oven. But if you have a little bit of time, I do that just so that way it kind of puffs more instead of spread. So I usually use an ice cream scoop, or if you have a cookie scoop, that works too, a smaller one, just because I like them to be the same size. And trying to use a spoon or a different piece of equipment can sometimes make that a little harder. So usually I'll use that. And then try to leave a good amount of space in between each cookie, just because the baking powder usually makes them spread a good amount. And it's a little harder to break them apart if they stick. You can, it works just fine if that happens, but trying to leave just a decent amount of space in between each one makes it a little bit easier. I'm also using parchment paper just because I find it works a little bit easier to just get them off afterwards. Almond flour and coconut flour in particular both like to stick a little bit more. So I find if I just grease the pan with oil or butter, they don't come off as well. If you have really good pans and nothing sticks to them, then feel free to just use the pan and then just use a little bit of butter or oil to grease it and you're good. For me, I just kind of like the fail-safe of using the parchment just so they come off super easy. So they're all relatively the same size. They have all their chocolate chips. If you want extra chocolate, you could put a couple on top just so that way there's a little bit more that melts over the top. Or sea salt is another great thing. Salt and chocolate love each other. So you could do just a tiny bit over each one and then you could put them in the oven. Like I said, 15 to 30 minutes is usually for almond flour what works best. I know regular cookies it's usually 10 to 12 minutes, but because almond flour is softer, it actually takes a little longer to bake. So you have to be a little bit more patient with almond flour, but the result is completely worth it, trust me. So you can take this and then put it in the oven. And then after the 15 to 30 minutes, which for me was 30, you get this result. So they turned out really great. I find they look exactly like a standard chocolate chip cookie, and most people can't even tell the difference. If you just tell them it's a cookie, it's just like any other one. So I think that they turned out great, and then I usually like to have milk with mine. Kind of just a standard childhood thing that you just don't really, I think, ever break. So if you like having milk with your cookie, feel free. And yeah, that is basically my best version of chocolate chip cookies. They work really well with coconut flour too. So if you can't have nuts, then both work just as great. And feel free to give it a try. I'm really excited to see what you guys do with this, what your combinations are. Come up with as many things as you want because it is so fun to see the results of it. So I hope you guys love this recipe. We're going to be doing a little more dessert next week, which I'm really excited about. If you want this recipe, subscribe to the channel and then you'll be able to see it. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. I'll see you next week. Bye.